welcome everybody. We're here today to talk about selecting supports and services. We're excited to be at the conference today. And we've got a great host of panelists. We can move to the next slide to talk a little bit about the panelists. Myself, Patricia Brennan, and I am the Director of the Office of Education on Self-Directed Services. And I am joined by a panel of great family members who are going to talk a little bit about how they were able to select their supports and services through self-direction. I'll move to the next slide, Javier. So at the Division of Developmental Disabilities, we've been starting, at least I've been starting all the presentations with really emphasizing our mission so that everybody is continuously reminded about the mission of the Division of Developmental Disabilities to assure the opportunity for individuals with developmental disabilities to receive quality services and supports, participate meaningfully in their communities, and exercise their right to make choices. Move to the next slide, Javier. So some of the tenets of self-direction that we want to talk about today are the freedom to live the life you choose, where and with whom, and freely chosen assistance as needed. The authority for control of limited amount of public dollars. Support, planned and based upon the level of needs, but like needs get like supports based upon like resources. Responsibility to spend public dollars wisely and contribute to one's community. Confirmation, to recognize that people with developmental disabilities must be a part of redesigning the human services system. Move to the next slide. So we see that services and supports are evolving over time. So as we look, we actually took this slide from the community of practice for Trying the Life course, because we really want to show that how in the past people were existing within the context of the family in their communities. And then as service delivery system began to build, we saw we would be able to provide services specifically to enable people to be within their community and services and support them. But what that was seeming to provide is that we saw that somebody had an individual developmental disability in their family and saying that they only need to get services from one specific place. What ideally should be happening is that all people should have the right to live, love, work, and play within their community. And if they need to have supports, they should be peppered within them so that they can have the right supports within their community, figuring it out along the way. So it's evolved throughout time. So there weren't any supports and services. So when we got supports and services, and the services then it became, oh, you have a disability, you need to go here for your services. Now it's being able to support everybody within their community and have the right supports and services along the way. So these services and supports are evolving, and people are being empowered to make their own choices along the way. Can move to the next slide, Javier. So what is self-directed services? It's an alternative to agency-delivered model. This is actually the Center for Medicaid and Medicaid Services specific definition. It's a person, not the provider, has the authority to hire, screen, train, and supervise their own staff. They are in charge. They are in that driver's seat for who supports them and how they are supported. It's the utilization of a fiscal management service agency known as a fiscal intermediary. In New Jersey, people can self-direct all or some of their services, which include the self-directed employees, access to programs, services. There's anything that's available through a public vendor. Move to the next slide, Javier. So what's the difference? This is a huge paradigm shift, because as we saw through the evolving slide with the circles, we went from a system that was completely and totally provider managed. Professionals were identifying the types of supports and services for the person. And now when you see a person is self-directing, the person is the expert in identifying their needs and preferences. In the past, the provider was, traditional agencies were employing the direct service workers who were helping the person. Now the person is in charge in training and hiring and supervising their own supports within their communities. In the past, in a provider managed system, the professional was determining the support strategies that were implemented. And now we're seeing as person is self-directing that they are in charge of the supports that they are being put into place. So it's a paradigm shift from a provider-driven service to a self-direction. And in New Jersey, we sat down and we listened to a core group of family members and said to us, if we could do this, we could do this better. We want to be in charge. We want to be self-directing. We want to provide this option for people along the way. So this session is going to talk a little bit about how a person can, how you can select these services, what's been done, what are the different ways in which, because many times families say, well, I just go to a provider because they'll get me that right person. They'll help me figure those pieces out, even though maybe, it might be better met by being in charge. Self-direction, we can hear you say a little bit about how we selected the service. So we're going to focus today's really the goal of today is to focus on how do we select the services and how do different people get there. So we have a great panel that's going to talk to you a little bit about those next steps. You can move to the next slide. Javier. All right. Really talking about and thinking about when you sit down about the integrated supports and services. What does a person want in their life? And how do we get there? And a lot of times we get there by asking the question of what don't I want in my life? What don't I want my life to look like? And looking about the different strengths a person has, the relationships that they have that they can build upon in their community, eligibility specific services, community-based services, technology-based services. Some of the things that we're looking for services and supports made just based upon technology. We can use technology for a myriad of things these days. As you see, this whole conference, which would have been in person, is now all virtual. Community-based resources. Where does everybody get things within their community? What works best for the person? Looking upon all these things to get to the person to have that good life. And sometimes you don't even know where to look, but it's all right at your fingertips. It's all around you. It's really drawing down and figuring out how to get there. You can move to the next slide, Javier. So self-directed services, the person is in the center of every aspect of it. Looking upon the information and assistance, the service plan. It's a person-centered process based upon the individualized budget, and the fiscal intermediary is going to act as the person who figures those pieces out with the dollars. So again, the person is in the center if you're self-directing. And you're going to hear from a group of folks who are completely self-directing and figure out, and they're going to help you, guide you in this session as to what types of services, what types of supports, and where they were able to select the right services from. You can move to the next slide, Javier. So which services may a self-directed employee be hired for? So if you're looking for a self-directed employee, how do you figure those out? What are the next pieces? So if you're on the community care program, they can be for an individual supports, interpreter services, and respite. Same thing with supports program with community-based supports. Can we move to the next slide as well? Self-directed services through a community vendor-assisted technology, environmental modifications, goods and services, natural supports training, transportation, and vehicle modification. Can move to the next slide. People have the choice and option in the fee-for-service system. They can pick and choose who provides the services, where, and when. They can mix self-directed and provider-managed services throughout their plan so that they can achieve their ultimate goals. Some people may choose to select all the supports and services, and some people may choose to do just parts of them. You can move to the next slide. So what does a blended work week look like? So some folks say, I really do want to use a provider for some pieces. And that's totally fine. You can figure it out where sometimes, some days of the week, you would go to, and if you see from the schedule here, a person is going to the traditional day of habilitation on Mondays because that's the day they really like what's going on there. And then in the afternoon, they're doing some community-based classes. And on Tuesdays, they're doing something completely different. You can figure out what, based upon the person, what works for them. That is the whole basis upon self-direction and looking at how you select your services. So sometimes you may want to select a traditional provider, and sometimes you may want to select self-direction. Can we move to the next slide? So the completely self-directed week would not have any of the provider-managed sections in it, and would have the person being in charge of all of the staff that they work with, all the people. They would not be going to any type of facility-based program. Again, this, based upon what works for the person. The person is at the center of all of these programs. Remember to the next slide. Support brokerage. So a lot of times we hear families say, okay, this sounds great, but who's going to help me with this process? Because it's a lot of work. Sometimes it's easier to go the provider managed route. In New Jersey, we've reached recently put together support brokerage. So it was part of our manuals, and we've been able to design it so that it works best for the person, so to have somebody to help them to figure those pieces out. So it's available to both people in the community care program and in the supports program. Move to the next slide. So what does a support broker do? A support broker is going to assist a person and their family with tasks related to self-directed service. They're going to help you find the self-directed employees, help you plan and access and manage, what works best. If we want to go out in the community and figure out a book club, what type of book club would be the best one that would fit the person? They're going to help with that. Because a lot of times you hear someone who's helping somebody self-direct say, I just don't have time to do that. The broker can help you through that piece. They're going to help you with being a responsible employer. They're going to help with responsibilities involved with self-directing your services. So if you're choosing to self-direct your service, you're saying, I need a little bit of extra support through that piece, you're going to utilize a broker. They're going to make sure the person and the self-directed employees are figuring out those steps. Because sometimes you say, oh my gosh, have self-directed employees. We figured them out, but managing them is difficult. I need help doing that. So support brokers could help you do that. So this is another service that you can choose to help somebody self-direct. So one of the services you can select, if you say, I want to self-direct, but I need help, you can select for a support brokerage as a service. Move to the next slide, Javier. So again, they can help you with community mapping, facilitating or helping to figure out your circles of support. They can help you with learning about what the person wants long-term and short-term, and helping access those natural and generic resources that are around. So they're going to help figure those pieces out. Maybe someone wants to take a class, but they don't know if they want a large class or a small class, or if they want to take the class down the street, or if they want to take a class that's further away. What works best for them? And sometimes if someone is self-directing this, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to get there. You're going to hear from a group of families who said what worked for them and what didn't work for them, and when they were starting along the way. But a support broker will help you do that. And again, this is another service that you can choose to utilize if you're choosing to self-direct. Move to the next slide. Again, selecting services, how to figure out what's going to support you best. You're going to look at what's in that person's circle of support. Who's closest to you in that person's map? So if you're looking to select your service and you think about, okay, so who do I work best with? Who helps me have a good day? Like, what makes for a good person? Who's going to support me to have my good day? What type of person? Do I like a loud person? Do I like a funny person? Do I like someone who's going to tell me to make sure that, or someone who's going to make sure that I'm on time for things? Who do we enjoy spending time with? Are they quiet people? Are they loud people? Figuring out the right matches. You're going to look at the characteristics people who support a person best and figure out how to select the right services and supports for them. So you really want to make sure you get a good picture of what everyone wants to achieve in their life and who supports them best when you're selecting that right self-directed employee. Finding that right match is not an easy thing. So again, looking at the circle of support in a family's life to go to the next step. Can we move to the next slide? Again, this is not done alone. This is done as part of a team. So then we figure that those pieces out. Figuring out the who works as part of your team. Everybody gets each person to the next step. So in any sport you could be playing, you would make sure that, there's a team that gets you along the way. And there's some signals, in baseball, there's signals for, touching the ear means one thing. Figuring out, with the catcher tells the pitcher which type of pitch to throw. We figure these out as part of a team. There's no I in the team, and there's no I in self-direction. We figure this, maybe there isn't the direction part of it, but there isn't we really figure those pieces out together as a team. The physical intermediary, the person in charge, the support coordinator, the support broker, the family, everybody figures things out as we get together. So can we move to the next slide, Javier? So I'm going to turn this over as you're going to hear all these different pieces from the different family members that have offered to share how they selected their supports and services and what works best for them. Just going to help you as you're selecting your services, or if you came into the session wanting to hear a little bit more. I'm going to turn it over to Ann Martinelli, who's going to talk about Jo, her son, how she selected her supports and services.
Thanks, Tricia. going to talk a little bit about what's important to my son, Joe, and how that guided us in choosing his supports and services. So family is very important to Joe. We have a large family. We spend a lot of time together, and everyone gives input. Joe's always asking people questions, and that was really important at the beginning when we first started 18 years ago. We asked questions of people that we were hiring. You know, Joe participated in asking the questions and interviewing. He wanted to know about people. He wanted to know, you know, do you like the same things that I do? So you can see Joe likes sports. He likes the beach. You can see a few pictures of him on the beach. Top middle picture is my grandson playing soccer for his college. We go to his games. Exercise is important to Joe. Bottom center picture, you can see Joe getting ready to work out in his standing table. Being with a lot of people can sometimes be overwhelming to Joe, but when he wants, he will decide when he wants to be with a lot of people. That bottom lower left picture was one of Joe's support staff a few years ago, and Joe was getting ready to speak in front of a large group of people, about 200 people, using assistive technology. So things that are important to Joe have guided us in doing all the things we want to do. Next slide, Javier. Obviously, things changed a lot in 2020 with COVID. So all the things that Joe liked to do, we had to make some huge shifts. We did a lot more things at home. Up at the top left, you can see we had a crazy costume, dressed up fancy party in one of my daughter's backyards. Top right picture, Joe used to love to go to dances. This was a virtual dance, a Halloween dance. He just dressed up as a zombie. So we had to make some huge shifts, still being able to do the things that he wanted, but having to move to virtual. Joe still likes to be outdoors. He's outdoors with his support staff. Middle right picture, you can see he's at a brewery. And then getting back to the classes that he enjoyed. Now he has to, you know, wear a mask in class. He's doing that. Still likes to be outdoors at home with the family. You can see him in our family pool. Next slide, Javier. I'm turning it over now to Natalie Trump. She's going to be talking about her daughter and how they selected their supports and services.
Thank you. For Marie and I, it was all about person-centered thinking and planning, and what was important to Marie and what was important for her when selecting supports and services. And as you could see in the photo slide here, family as well. Family is a huge part. The beach is a huge part. Marie loves the beach. That's us in LBI. Also for Marie, what was important to her when she graduated high school was getting a job and earning money, because Marie loves to go shopping. It was important to her. She saw mom doing that. So after high school, you know, DVR wasn't able to find Marie a job. And so I took her job hunting. I took it upon myself. I facilitated the conversation with the manager, thought outside the box. I was scared. And thank goodness, the manager at Taco Bell said yes. So you'll see Todd at the top picture at the left, her manager. It was her first job, and Todd took Marie under his wings, taught her so many things. Number one, he taught her, you know, the ins and outs of the simple parts of the job. And then he said, I'm going to teach you how to take orders over the drive-through, from the drive-through with a headset on. So I was like really nervous about that. I didn't think Marie could do it, but boy, did she surprise me. So she learned, and if she had an issue, she would just press the B button in her headset. Todd would be there to help her. So he was a natural support, an unpaid support. And then, you know, after a couple of years, you know, we all have many jobs. Marie began working at the Children's Center of Monmouth County, assisting in their kitchen at the salad bar. You know, 2-3 days a week, they would pay her. It was amazing. She loved working there. She learned a lot. She also actually worked at Walmart. Her last job right before COVID was at Ruby Tuesday's restaurant. And unfortunately, she lost the job because they closed their doors permanently. However, recently I took her on an interview at Corrado's Market, which is going to open here in our town once renovations are done. So she's looking forward to getting back out in the community to work. What else is important to Marie are holiday traditions. I mean, she's got these routines. This is just who Marie is. So right after Thanksgiving dinner, and it's great, Marie, her nieces and her nephew, they go out to the garage, they take out the Christmas tree and the decorations, and they start. And you can see that in the bottom photo pictures. Also, Marie loves making chocolate-covered pretzels, baking our jelly dot cookies, and she does this with her nieces and nephew. And they do this to share it with others. Friends are also important to Marie. The two photos in the middle are some of the friends she's met over the years. She attended Brookdale Community College, which was one of the supports and services we accessed for about 8 years, their Enrichment Opportunities program. And she still has those friends till today. Now, one of Marie's hopes and dreams, which is part of being, with person-centered thinking and planning, this was her hope and dream, to one day live on her own or with a housemate. And it was in 2012. She was 30 years old. She really wanted to, and it was hard for me to let go. It was very hard for me to let go, but it was important to Marie, and I had to try. So we did move her to an apartment with another housemate, and the first 3 weeks, I was a wreck. I called and visited her daily, sent her sister over all the time, but then not as often because we had 3 self-directed support staff that worked with her as well as her housemate. And, we pitched in when need be. Marie also had a supportive housing voucher from, DDD towards her rent, which was a great help. And she continued working. And one of the services and supports, I was a nervous wreck about this too, is her using Uber. And we used Uber through a company called Attain and Gain, a DDD qualified provider. And it worked phenomenally. Her sister did follow Uber twice, the first 2 times, and make sure, and then she'd call us. But, you got to think outside the box and let go. Yeah, there were bumps in the road. After 7 years of sharing an apartment with her housemate, we hit that bump. And they weren't getting along. We tried working things out, but it didn't happen. So Marie asked to come back home, which she did in October of 2019. And, she talks about having her own apartment again one day, and I know we can rebuild it and recreate this using self-direction, person-centered thinking and planning, and the tools, and her budget. Next slide, please. So where we are in between 2020 and 2022, you could see the far left photo. That's Marie working from home, because remember, to Marie, what was important to her was working and getting paid. So Marie had volunteered at Ocean Early Childhood Center for many years. So I asked the kindergarten teacher when COVID hit, they were doing some, school, if she could volunteer, but not volunteer, if she could work from home. And what they did was they created a job for Marie. So she laminates the students' worksheets. So all they have to do is disinfect and wipe them. And to this day, she's still doing that until we could get her, Corrado's opens. The bottom picture is one of Marie's interests, sailing. Ocean County College is a DDD qualified provider of services, and they had a safe sail program, which we used her self-supports program budget to access that class. She learned how to make knots, info on, safety and about sailing. And by the end of the program, she could sail a boat on her own. She signed up again the next year, and she was so confident about it. She registered for Ocean County College's A Night at the Races, and she raced her boat against others, and she came in 5th place. We were so proud of her. The top right picture is another of Marie's favorite interests, singing. So during COVID, we looked for services Marie enjoyed. She loves music and singing. So I found this amazing qualified provider, Blue Light Music. They provided virtual lessons. They also have in-person studios as an option. However, they're an hour and a half from us, so that wasn't going to work, but the virtual was a blessing. Marie takes lessons twice a week, with Armani, her voice teacher, and that's paid through her supports program budget. It's a great support. She looks forward to it. Marie also participates and volunteers in our community in other ways. She's a member of a free karaoke online group called Tina's Tunes. She's made friends with this young group of folks who enjoy karaoke. She gets online with a Zoom link every Monday and Wednesday where they each choose songs and they sing and everyone takes a turn. They listen to each other and they clap and cheer. It's a really fun social group doing what they love. She also volunteers at her church. She sings solo anthems, sometimes on her own, sometimes with her brother and her niece. She's volunteered as an usher and it gives her so much joy because she's a contributing member in her community. The top middle picture is one of Marie's interests, painting. She loves to paint. She takes virtual painting lessons through a qualified provider again, the Pickled Artist, and Lorena is her teacher. These virtual classes, again, are a blessing. Marie uses her phone and a Chromebook to hear Lorena's instructions and to see Lorena and the example picture of what Marie is going to paint. She gets to see what it is she's going to paint. So in this slide, you can see Marie's paintings of the ocean, the apple and pear, and the cherries. And on January 20th, Marie sold her first painting, the cherries. Marie loves her session. It's once a week and it's paid through her supports program budget. The top left picture is Marie and her direct support staff. Now this staff member, we love her. Her name is Stacy. We've found her through a provider agency, Royal Community Supports. We interviewed her. She was a great match, very soft-spoken, which is important to Marie. And she's been working with us for over 3 years. So in the picture, they're at a free concert in Point Pleasant at Jenkinson's Boardwalk. They're at a Disney's The Little Merman Family Beach Show. And Marie and Stacy share similar interests of going to Great Adventure, on the rides, to the shows, shopping, to free concerts, exercising, walks on the beach and boardwalk, out to eat, and to the arcades. Marie absolutely has a full life. It was such a pleasure to share a snapshot of it with you. And I'm going to turn it over to my good friend, Mary Kneuer.
Next slide. Hello, I'm Mary Kneuer, and I'm the mom of Matthew and Daniel here. And they are both using self-directed services. And this is a sort of before and after kind of thing. So this is the guys when they were little, you can tell. And then on the bottom right-hand side is there a recent picture at a local pizzeria that they're very popular at, and it has some of their favorite pasta dishes and pies and stuff. So what's important to Matt is movement. He's someone who likes to please. He's high energy. He's very perceptive and highly intuitive. So to have what works for Matt is having support staff and things to do where he can move a lot, and that his support staff also don't mind doing those things and chasing him around when he's in one of his moods where he really needs to move and go. What's important to both my boys is the birthdays in the family. They think everybody's birthday is their birthday. They like to celebrate it with everyone. They love their birthdays. In fact, we pretty much have a birthday month when it's each of their birthdays. And Daniel's the same exact way as his brother with that piece. Dan is a little different than Matthew. He was, how I describe Daniel is he was born with his feet up smoking a cigar. He loves to be waited on. He loves, he's a bit of a trickster. He likes to tease and bust people. But he too is very highly intuitive and perceptive. And here in the middle, we got an opportunity in 2012 for them to move out into their own place. So we've been self-directing their housing and living on their own with 24/7 supports this is our 10th year. The guys love living on their own. It is very important to them. Up here in the corner with the three of them sitting there, my daughter also, we were at a family wedding. They love parties. They like to be part of things, but then there's times too, they need to step back away from the crowd and take a break. And then to the right, that's one of their support staff, Reggie. His mother is a preacher, and the guys go to regular church services with them, and they're loved and accepted by Reggie's family and all my staff's family. Next slide, please. Okay, here we are. So we had a lot of big events this past year. My daughter got married, and Matthew and Daniel, as well as Reggie, were in the wedding party. And all my support staff and their family sat at the head table with us because we have become a family. They have embraced my sons, and their community, their families. They have Sunday dinner with grandma. They have all sorts of activities they go to all the time. Their family members, sporting events and birthdays and their parties. So they're always going and doing, which is really good for them. And they're very independent. The bottom right-hand corner is something they love to do, which is going out to meals. There they are with their sister, and Matt's face, he's got a kind of a furrowed brow. It was drizzling a little bit, and he didn't like that weather, so he wasn't smiling too much. Over here, you see Dan holding a box of cereal, and we're all standing around this food. We were at the Monmouth County Food Bank. We had raised over 900 pounds of food. The guys did with their day program, and the young lady there leaning over with the white shirt on. Her name is Zoe, and Zoe was graduating high school, and it was part of a project. So between the guys program and her high school, we raised 900 pounds of food, and we hit a record for the food bank. And we hope to get, now that COVID's, hopefully on its way out, to get the guys to do stuff like this again. One thing I can say about supports and services for them, you really need to know what's important to your loved ones and what's good for, what they enjoy and what they like to do. Also, don't be afraid to try. Step out and find out. That's what we do. We've absolutely had epic fails. Baseball does not work for my boys, either of them, or soccer. Both of them were epic fails. They like to watch the games. They don't want to play. They like to go get a snack at the snack bar. They'll watch, but they do not want to be on that field. So that's one thing I want to say about selecting your supports and services. And up here you see Matt and Dan with grandma. Grandma is Reggie's grandmother, and she cooks Sunday dinner for them every Sunday. And that's something that really works for them, and she enjoys being around them. And these other pictures are them with their staff across the top. There's Jennifer, there's and two with Lachelle, and Dan not exactly being happy. He does love to shop, but he's not happy about the escalator. And he especially loves to shop if it's for him. So this is where we are in 2022. We hope to be getting out there and trying some new things now that some of these restrictions are lifted. And good luck with selecting your supports and services, but you have to try. Thank you.
So I really want to focus on the supports in the family home and then in Aaliyah's own home, because there's a huge difference. There's vulnerability that comes with having someone come into your own home, which we've lived with for years. There's an awkward and uncomfortable nature. Heaven forbid there's dirty dishes in the sink and laundry in my house and what's left out. And I could see even the tense kind of feeling that staff had coming into our home. So Aaliyah's been out of the family home now for 10 years. And that whole process of identifying her support staff has been a learning experience for us. How would I ever trust someone? Aaliyah doesn't speak. One of the first things that her brothers wanted me to do was put a camera in her home. And I haven't yet, and I think I will at some point, obviously in the common areas. And that is because I have to hire people that I could trust, right? And that whole process, again, was such a learning experience for me, because at that time, 10 years ago, I wasn't in a position where I was doing that a lot. So I started by using Indeed and word of mouth. And so we had some very interesting characters, right, that I had interviewed. And so some of the kind of lessons learned I want to share with you is I always do an initial interview in kind of a neutral community space. And now with Zoom, this is where I have done that initial kind of meet and greet, because I don't want them meeting Aaliyah unless I've had the opportunity to kind of meet and vet them a little bit. And my interview process is really, trying to understand from them what are their strengths and what are some of the ways that they find joy and enjoyment in their life, because it starts to tell me again about those characteristic matches. And so if they kind of, get through that first level, then the second meet is with Aaliyah at her home. And so I really spend a lot of time making sure that a potential support staff gets a chance to meet her. One of the struggles that we've had is because Aaliyah doesn't use words to communicate, someone new often has this uneasiness of how am I going to know what to do for her? So I am very detailed in the job descriptions. Leah has different shifts that come into her home. And what I've done is actually even identify times that certain things have to be done. And so we've chosen to use agency with choice because of the benefits. And I'm just going to put it out there. We can pay a little bit more than some of the provider agencies. And there's a lot of discussion out there in terms of capping pay rates. And I will tell you that I share a lot of those concerns. And I am still very much involved in this process because I've seen self-direction evolve in the 10 years. And I've seen it try to work on addressing some of these concerns. So if I don't say it enough, I'm going to say it, that it's not without challenges. It is not the easiest route. Not that there is such a thing, but for us, Aaliyah tells us with every ounce of her being, as you could see this smile on her face, this is how she communicates. This is how she tells me. So I say to potential staff, Aaliyah will train you, right? Aaliyah will train you. She's very regimented and scheduled because she's so dependent on all of her needs. And that the more time you spend with her and the more interactions that you have with her, you're going to be able to understand her language. So that initial recruitment and interviews is so critical for us. And then the ongoing support. So I do check-ins, right? One-to-one check-ins with all of the staff to see how things are going. And I will tell you that they've been able to problem solve with me in ways that I hadn't even thought of. Next slide, please. What we've seen is through this COVID pandemic that the staff have remained loyal. They have gone out of their way to support her. And so for Aaliyah, the direct support professionals have been such an integral part of how we've used the budget. And the second part is her day services. So as my time comes to an end, I would like to turn it over to my friend, Monique. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorraine. Lorraine said so many things that just really resonate with me. So meet Kyrie. Kyrie has been involved with self-direction for the last 20 years. And we started actually in the home and transitioned into using a blended type of model that Tricia spoke about before once he went into his own home. Kyrie also communicates in his own fashion, and it has been very important for us to always make Kyrie part of the decisions. He does recognize his space and his power in the decision making. And one of the things, as we're talking about supports and services, I don't really use that type of language. Supports are all of those things that enable an individual person to live a good life, to live a meaningful life. So I try to look at who does someone need in their life in order for those things to happen. Services to me sounds like I'm in the store buying something. And what I'm looking at is, what are the type of opportunities? What are the things, the benefits? What are the things that inspire and that expose and build lives? Because that's what this was about. It was about directing into meaningful lives based on who Kyrie is. Staff is very important because those are the people. As I said, Kyrie communicates differently. He may communicate very differently to his family than he does to someone else, like we all do. So who is involved in who supports Kyrie also has a very big charge of helping to figure out what type of things are important, Kyrie, by exposing Kyrie to so many different things. And we have we have lists. There's where we write down things that Kyrie likes. I've been doing that for years, and then start to build around those type of things that inspire him, that we find that he likes. And you can see through this picture, someone that has been a very big support is his grandmother, who is now 92 years old and still in the picture. She is a very big factor in my son's life. He loves animals, and have looked, especially even now through the pandemic, a lot of outside activities that has really done well in regards to Kyrie's well-being and his physical activities. He loves being on a boat. And these are the type of things, through providing opportunities to experience things, that we have found that's how you build a life. Staffing is very important. It is about valuing those people that value the life you are building. If they do not see that vision, if they don't have an expectation, then they are not valuable. A lot of what I do, sustainability is very important. Kyrie has always had at least 6 to 8 direct support people involved in his life. We talk about a lifespan and that trajectory, people that may be his age, someone that may be more of a matriarch figure, someone that is more a male figure in his life. These are all essential. Kyrie lives in his own home. So over the weekend, it is his home, not a group home, his home. So the big thing is to incorporate all of those things as much as possible that create a home, but also those checks and balances that need to be in place to ensure Kyrie has a successful life. If you go on to the next slide. So where is Kyrie today? Well, Kyrie has lost an amazing amount of weight due to changing the type of activities that he's involved with since the pandemic. And he is living a life that is full of still providing opportunities to be exposed, to provide opportunities around taking risk, and about sustaining and valuing direct support people. You see this young man in the picture with Kyrie. Julius, although still involved with our life and still providing supports to people with developmental disabilities, still in New Jersey, he is still in our life. He has been in our life since he was 19 years old, and he is still available. We have sustained a lot of people, family members, people that have been like family, because we value what they bring to the table. We value that they have lives as well. And so I am a huge advocate. I had saw yesterday in the chat people discussing not being able around pay rates. This is about valuing and advocating. I want to leave all of you with some things that I say constantly, that are my own goals. And some of the things that we find that we're continually working on is, when someone communicates differently, I rely a lot on who the staff is, what they see, how they include Kyrie in the decision-making, and how they begin to problem solve. I have a couple of sayings, when I'm called sometimes about some of the things, and I say, pretend that I'm dead, because I'm not always going to be here. So how will those problems be solved? I say things like, Kyrie lives in his own home because he's grown. If you see me all the time, he might as well live with me. That's not the adult we have chosen or he has chosen to be. Our goal, I want to visit Kyrie, not work for him. I want to visit him, not work for him. And so these are all of those ongoing things. And it's about valuing your direct support people and advocating on their behalf. You will find sustainability. You will find staff that has vision when you value as well who they are and what they bring to this whole process of creating meaningful lives. Tricia?
Sure. So the last piece, I want to thank everybody for, sorry, I need to turn my thing on. I want to thank everybody for participating and sharing with us how they selected their services and supports. And each of these folks have so much more to say. They each only got 3 to 5 minutes to talk, but they could go on about all the wonderful experiences and all the not so wonderful experiences that they've had along the way and help you with selecting your services and help you share, what worked for them and what hasn't worked for them. And, we are going to be having additional networking meetings with families. So some of the helpful resources that we have here, this will be available to you there is a guide for understanding self-directed services and support broker roles. There is some of the life course tools that I showed you, the STAR and the trajectory. That is also available at the life course tools. If you could go to the next slide. My contact information is here. We now have our new Office of Education on Self-Directed Services. And with that office, we now have an email address. Myself or my staff will be manning that as well. And we will be able to answer any of your questions. We now have a drop down on the web link, official as of yesterday, or actually last month, if this is for the session, but it's pretty effective. And the link that you can go on to explore anything about human services on the human services link on the self-directed section. So we can move to the next slide. The Community Living Education Project, they've partnered with us we're going to be starting in April, family networking meetings about self-direction. So really having that time together to talk over, virtual coffee and conversation about, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, where did you get those resources, how did you do this? Really getting families to talk to one another, and then also fostering self-advocates to talk to one another as well, which is pretty awesome. So we can move to the next slide. So again, new sharing possibilities in self-direction, sharing possibilities of communication, and there's going to be an e-newsletter that's going to come out, so watch for it. It's coming up. More opportunities for how to select services, really, so that if you're new to this and you're saying, I want to know if I'll be able to do this, you can say, we will have a medium for all of you to go forward and say, all right, this is what I want to do, and this is how I can get there. Really helping educate people as to how they can get there. Move to the next. I think this is one of the last ones. And then we're going to open it up for questions. But again, I want to thank everybody who participated, because I know they all could talk a whole lot longer and share all of their wonderful experiences as well. And we just kind of put it into this small time frame to kind of give you a taste of what it's like to select services as you're self-directing. So thank you all so much.